Greetings, Arts Beatniks. It's the KC Arts Beat Report. I'm Patrick Neas. And today, if you love choral music, you will certainly want to stay tuned because we're going to be talking to Ben Spalding, the artistic director and founder of Spire Chamber Ensemble. They have a wonderful collaborative concert coming up very soon, which you will definitely want to know about. But first of all, I'd like to ask you to please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, and also subscribe to us on Substack, where we keep you up to date on the arts in Kansas City and provide all kinds of great information. So please do that. But right now, it's time to say hello to our good friend Ben Spalding from Spire. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Patrick. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for hosting. You've been a long time friend of Aspire for our whole history almost.
Well, it's been quite a journey. What season is this, by the way?
That we are starting season 16, which is kind of hard to
Wow.
believe.
I remember that first season so
Yeah.
well. That just amazing. And and you're thriving and doing such great, interesting stuff. It seems like you're getting stronger every year, which is really great because I know that arts groups face a lot of challenges, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
And so, it's terrific you're doing that. I know you're doing it with the support of a lot of people in the community who love what you're doing. And for good reason, you're doing terrific stuff. For
Thank you.
example, a couple of concerts coming up on October 4th at Redemptorist and October 5th at Visitation Catholic Church called Reflections. Tell us about this concert.
Yeah, this is a really exciting concert, and I've actually had this idea in my back pocket for over a decade. And what I think is really fascinating is to take a look at the Renaissance gems of there was a reason the Renaissance was called the golden era of choral music. Thousands and thousands upon thousands of pieces were written. And I always thought it would be super fascinating to juxtapose those with modern settings of the exact same text
Hmm.
and put them together without pause. And so this whole program is designed to showcase a Renaissance piece and then immediately follow a modern reflection on that same text. And in a lot of cases, the modern composers maybe borrowed motives or materials from the Renaissance piece or expanded upon it or contracted. So it's a really fascinating and I think really intriguing look at how composers set the same text, but in vastly different ways. So hence the name Reflection. It's a mere kind of view at looking back, but also looking into our present time.
And as I mentioned, this is a collaborative concert. Why don't you tell us whom you're working with for this?
Yeah, so we are really thrilled to present the monumental Thomas Tallis 40 voice motet, Speninalium. The scores are so big that they're about 2.5 feet long, and we will have to sing from these giant scores with these 40 parts. And we are collaborating with the choirs of William Jewell College and Dr. William Abernathy, who serves there as interim director of choral studies. So they will be joining us and covering, we're each covering about half the parts. And so it's a great opportunity for these students to sing really a work that is almost never done. I don't know if it's ever been done in this region because of the sheer complexity and the sheer amount of forces you need for this just monumental undertaking.
Now, as a modern composer, set that text?
So that is the only one that is the oddball out,
Ah.
that where there's not a modern reflection on that. So that actually anchors the program in the middle. And so we have reflections on Renaissance pieces and contemporary pieces, and then the Speninalium, and then the second part of the concert is more reflections. And I think what's fascinating about this piece, it's a piece about hope. And I think our whole program is about hope. And what does it mean to look beyond something that maybe we don't understand, or look beyond ourselves, look into our fellow neighbor, our fellow community. So that central piece of the Spinninalium, I think is a really cool anchor. So you have kind of hope weaved throughout.
Wonderful. Boy, we sure need that
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that the Renaissance was the golden age of choral
Mhm.
music, and it seems to me like we are living in the golden age of discovering this music,
Yeah.
because there's been an explosion of recordings
Mhm.
over the past 20, 30 years. People like the Tallis Scholars and
Absolutely.
the 16 and
Yep.
so on that have been really bringing this wonderful music to us. And we don't get to hear it live often enough here in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So this will be a special treat. Uh, and you're doing some fantastic Renaissance composers that I'm familiar with from recordings, but not live. Like Swaylink, for example.
Mhm.
What can you tell us about Swaylink?
Well, I love Svalink kind of almost straddles the late Renaissance and early Baroque. A fantastic organist as well, as most composers of that time were. What's fascinating about his music is you can see the Baroque starting to form. And you see these melismas, right, or same text over same syllable over a long phrase, and you will see this more and more in his music as he has one ear towards the early Baroque, but in some ways he's kind of straddling both. Music history didn't happen where all of a sudden we're in the Renaissance and all of a sudden we're in the Baroque. There's always a transition period throughout all of our written music history, and so I think his music it's very fanfare-y, it's very ecstatic, and I think it opens the program. This is his Odie Christus Natus Es. And so when I talk about beginning the piece with hope, this piece talks about the hope of the incarnation of something that has never been done for those that are in the Christian tradition, God becoming fully man, and the excitement of that. So I think you'll hear flourishes, but also you'll hear that old kind of very long plain song chant as well.
Yeah, Hodie Christus Natus Est. It's a Christmas motet, right?
Mhm.
Uh,
Correct.
and,
Yeah.
and you're pairing it with Poulenc, which
Yeah.
seems like a curious pairing. What made you decide to compare it to contrast Poulenc with Swaylink?
Yeah, and so Poulenc is a composer that also he was really interested in rhythmic figures or small rhythmic devices. And we have that in the Baroque, which were rhetorical devices, and Svalink, his ear was starting to go to the Baroque. So what they did back then is they knew certain motives or certain little pieces of music. They equaled certain emotions. So I like to call them our modern day musical emojis, right? We all send emojis to
Uh-huh.
people to reflect a certain emotion. Well, these composers knew that if I do a certain interval or a certain rhythmic figure, that elicits emotion. And so Poulenc does that as well. And so I paired this piece because there's only three kind of small motives, and they're very, very small, just a few notes that Poulenc uses in this piece. And he just invents them and twists them and puts them upside down and on their head. And it makes for a really fascinating, kind of thrilling piece. I think that fits very well to the Spalink because of Spalink was doing that in a similar way, but divided by centuries.
Ben, I don't think I'll ever be able to hear the name Poulenc again without thinking of emojis.
Yes.
And I think that's a brilliant comparison because he did write these little short little figures, as you
Mhm.
say. Uh,
Absolutely.
and he came out of the cabaret.
Yep. Yep.
That
Yep.
was a big influence on him. And there even in his sacred music, you've got that kind of cabaret kind of
You do.
uh,
Yep. Yeah.
quality. Now, another composer who I find really quite the antithesis of Poulenc is Victoria. I
Yeah.
love Victoria. His music seems to me so lush and, gorgeous. It seems very un-Poulencian. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not.
Yeah, I think Victoria was somebody that he gave up his very comfortable cathedral job to become a priest and really only compose for most of his life sacred music. And we have so much sacred music from him. But he was also pretty eclectic in that we have like his O Manu Mysterium, which many high school groups sing, or college or collegiate. It is really an amazing study on line, and a lot of the lines we think about. One of the analogies I do with Renaissance lines is if you think about dolphins swimming, right? They may leap up and then maybe somebody else leaps up even farther, or maybe one leaps out of the water just a little bit. Sometimes they do it in pairs. Sometimes, if you're really lucky, you'll see several lines going together, maybe if you're really, really lucky, three or four. And so that's polyphony, right? There's a rise and fall to each line. Um, and that always has to do with plain chant, but also the stress of the text. What are the important words of the text? And so I find his music just so intriguing, and to be able uh, to sing some of these gems that you don't hear a professional choir sing. So I mean, most people will know this piece in the audience, but to hear us sing it, it's like the difference of maybe a normal sedan all of a sudden, but then you see a brand new Ferrari racing down the street. That's what Victoria will sound like with us, and we're just so excited to share it in these beautiful cathedrals.
This concert is going to be a wonderful survey, an overview of Renaissance music. So anybody who wants to get a good taste of some of the biggest names in Renaissance choral music, this is it, as well as with the contemporary composers that their music's being paired with. And you're doing
Yeah.
some Poulenc with Victoria. You're going to also pair Victoria with music by Cecilia McDowell, whose music I am not that familiar with. What can you tell us about her music?
Yeah, Cecilia McDowell is a wonderful British composer. And what I love about her story is she did not start composing until she was beyond 40. So she was always a musician, but never really had a kind of that spark or that desire to do it. I think she probably had the desire, but just had the right kind of culmination of things in her life work out. But since she has produced some amazing British choral music, a lot with choir and organ. And she writes very colorful harmonic language that is really, there's nobody quite like her today, where she's all about painting sonic pictures and sonic, taking the text, and you can almost imagine a picture of this music by the harmony that she uses. So we've done several of her pieces over the years, and we're happy to be able to do some more. I think audiences will really love the crunchy harmonies that she does, but it's always done so tastefully.
We're getting close to the heart of the program, which is the
Yeah.
Spim you had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But right before that, you're going to be doing a piece of music by a slightly younger contemporary of Thomas Tallis, William Byrd. Now, Tallis and Byrd, they were both, I think, what were called recusant Catholics. Is that right?
Yeah. And so during that time, we had a lot of turmoil in England versus Protestant versus Catholic. And so it was William Byrd is somebody that, again, we have an enormous amount of music from him, but they needed to be careful on living in both worlds and kind of a conflict of both Protestant and very on both ends of the spectrum, very convicted that one way is right and one way is wrong. And so these Tudor composers had to very carefully straddle this delicate balance. William Byrd is one of my favorite composers. He might be Desert Island top five. So we're doing a couple of his pieces, the Kyrie from Mass for Five Voices, and also his very famous Ave Verum Corpus. And I think audiences again will hear music that is familiar, like Tallis, but they each have their distinctive style that I think is just really beautiful. It's one of those I love to think of William Byrd as you can just sit back and kind of let the sound wash over you, and it's there's nothing quite like it.
No, I love Bird as well. And you're pairing that Kyrie with a take. I don't know if it's a take on that same Kyrie
Hmm.
by
It is.
Roxana Panufnik.
Yep, that's
And that
correct.
name rings a bell, by the way. Is she related to the Polish composer Andrzej Panufnik?
Yeah, great. It is, yeah, Roxanne is the daughter of a famous composer, and she has a really, I think, what I like to talk about her writing is it is polyphony, right? What I just talked about, that kind of rise and fall of lines, but it's polyphony in a crowded elevator. And so you have all of these lines, which she actually takes from Bird. So there are a lot of Bird's lines, but she stacks them on top of each other in really fascinating ways. And so you think your ear is going to hear, oh, that sounds just like Bird. But the moment your brain hears that, she piles other lines on top of it. It is just a sonic wash, and it's really fascinating music. There's nobody quite like her right now, writing this kind of what I call piled up polyphony.
Like I say, this is a chance to not only hear the great Renaissance composers, but also get exposed to some of the best contemporary choral writing as well.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then after that, it's the Speminalium, which you've already mentioned.
Mhm.
And after that, you're going to give the Jewell Concert Choir a chance to shine by themselves.
Yeah, we really thought that was important. So they've been working really hard on this Speninalium. It is not easy by any stretch of the imagination. So I know that they have just been so diligent. So we wanted to give them some time. So they will sing two Ave Maria settings, one by Jakob Handel, who died in 1591. But that's juxtaposed with the very famous Ave Maria setting by Igor Stravinsky.
And Stravinsky, we think of him, and of course, he was a real modernist. But didn't he also have an admiration for Renaissance choral music like Gesualdo?
He did. He did.
Yeah.
That definitely was very influential on him, and so I think some of that is apparent in his Ave Maria setting. That again, having an ear towards the past, which is, I think, all in all, this program is you're kind of omnipresent. In some ways, your ear is hearing things in the past. Some ways, your ear is hearing things that are very fresh today.
Yeah. And you'd mentioned that you're going to do another William Byrd piece, and
Yep.
that's the Ave Verum Corpus, which you're also doing a reimagined version of that by Roderick Williams. How about this composer who was born in 1965, a rather, a real contemporary?
Yeah, so Roderick Williams has actually been to Kansas City. He is a famous baritone, particularly for Bach cantatas and Handel, and really does it all. I mean, one of Britain's most famous living baritones. And so he was commissioned for a reflection on the very famous bird Ave Verum Corpus. So he took kind of a little bit like Poulenc, but he took his favorite moments of this piece as a singer. And so I think what's really fun to hear his compositional style is he is a singer. He is somebody that has grown up in the British tradition. And so what it means to sing these beautiful lines. And so there's just snippets of his favorite parts that he weaves in and out. This is for triple choir, which we don't have very often. So it is three different choirs singing, sometimes together, but mostly apart. And so you'll hear just enough of the Ave Verum Corpus to say, "Ooh, that was fascinating," and then he turns it on its head. Really fascinating.
I'm really excited about the next pairing. Hieronymus Praetorius. Now, I'm familiar with Michael Praetorius. Or is there any relationship there? You know?
There is, yeah, and maybe you could. I'm certainly happy to talk a little bit more about. I need to look that up.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh, maybe.
yeah, well, they're both Renaissance
Yeah,
composers. Michael
yeah,
Praetorius is famous for writing Terpsichore,
yeah,
a collection of dances.
yeah.
And he also wrote some choral music too. So I would not be surprised that he might have a relative
Yeah,
that also wrote choral music.
we definitely know that. I just don't remember off the top of my head
Sure. What the
the exact
relation
connection.
is.
But I do know that the it is that he is again somebody that straddled the end of the Renaissance and Baroque. And so you will hear like Svalink, even though this Pretorius is a little later, you'll hear the beginnings of what will eventually become the High Baroque with Bach and Handel.
I've heard some of Hieronymus Praetorius's music
Yep.
before, and to me, it has sort of this, and maybe I'm wrong, but as I recall, it had this kind of grandeur that was sort of like Monteverdi, but
It it does. There's a I don't want to spoil too much, but
uh-huh.
there's a section at the end of this piece that is just absolutely it hits you like a lightning bolt, and it is grand. It's double choir. Parts are moving as fast as lightning. And this particular text is about the Easter morning story, and so how the women find the tomb empty and what that means for the start of Christianity and the excitement that happens finding that the tomb was empty and running to tell everybody that would listen. I think it's a really powerful and yeah, I think grand is a perfect word for it.
Of course, it's Easter, and we associate with Easter, Alleluia.
Yep.
And this is really exciting because you're pairing that Praetorius with an Alleluia by you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I'm really excited for that. And the last words of the Pretorius are Alleluia. And so I wanted a modern reflection on just the word Alleluia. And so what I've done is created again a double choir motet. It's about 4 minutes. And I wanted something that would just challenge Spire about as far as we could push it. So there are parts that divide into 18 plus divisi. So you have choirs, each choir divided into 8 or 10 parts per choir. So you add all that up and you're 18 plus parts. And it is there's a lot of shifting time signatures and very tertiary to get to a kind of a nerdy word harmony that plays around a lot with thirds. And what that does is just for our listeners that it creates this kind of anticipation. You're kind of just always stacking thirds on top of each other, and so it has a rising, lifting quality to it, and it's tough. And I'm really excited to put it together. And it is kind of just a sheer tour de force for the singers. I know they'll love it. I'm really excited to premiere it, and I think it'll be a great fitting after the Pretorius.
Well, that'll be very exciting. It'll be great to hear your own music, Ben. Excited to
Thank you.
hear that. Now, I know I've been saying this throughout the interview that you're doing some of my favorite composers, but you truly are. And the next two really are two of my absolute favorites, Palestrina and Messiaen, two very different composers, although both of them extremely devout,
Yeah.
mystical Catholics.
Yeah, and I think that's you just hit on the really wonderful connection between them. And so, even in Palestrina's writing, or again that polyphony, it has a mystic quality that maybe some other Renaissance composers didn't quite live into as much. And I think Messiaen captures that. Messiaen was such a fabulous organist,
Yeah.
and so his organ music is just so evocative. And this piece he creates in maybe under 20 measures, a timeless piece that just moves throughout harmony. It's almost like you're in another world when you listen to this music. You're transported somewhere else. It's like you're listening to the choir, but somehow your ears are listening through them. There's very few music that I personally find like that, but Messiaen's music is it's like I'm almost hearing it in a maybe out of time, atemporal, and out of space, out of my current uh, understanding. So I think those would be really cool to
I
hear.
think that's how Messiaen lived too.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
supposedly he had synesthesia, which
Yeah.
you would hear notes and see colors. And I
Yes.
find that when I listen to his music, I almost start to get synesthesia.
Yeah.
There's just a real colorful quality to his music, and also utilized a lot of birdsong. I don't know if this particular piece does or not, but
It doesn't, but I mean, it's hard to know exactly where the influence stops and ends. But I think the colors, kind of the synesthesia, what you were just saying, is absolutely painted in this text about "O Sacred Banquet." Yeah, it's going to be. I think people will recognize it. And the other thing I should say that's really cool about this program is you are not going to be just have a sonic sound in front of you. You will have it behind you and to the side of you. In the audience, we are going to play with sound in acoustic properties in these beautiful cathedrals. So I want the audience to be excited also about these great composers, but that you're going to hear sounds from every corner of the cathedral. Sometimes it'll be in small groups, sometimes it'll be in larger forces, sometimes it'll be solos. It'll be an oral experience, but also just if you had 40 speakers and you're just standing in the middle of those speakers, that's what this concert will sound like.
wow, absolutely wonderful. That'll be terrific. And then you end the concert, you return to Thomas Tallis.
Yeah. This is the Lequebantur Varis. This is a text about Pentecost and just all of the people that experienced that in the Christian tradition, speaking in different languages, all at the same time. Um, and that is so apparent in Tallis's setting of this wonderful Pentecost text. And so you'll hear these kind of outbursts and it sounds like somebody speaking this language and then somebody speaking that language, and even in Tallis's style, he was able to capture that kind of this chattering quality, this can you believe what is happening quality to the sound, and so that's wonderful. And then again, another British composer, Ken Burton, fabulous, somebody that comes from the gospel tradition, but jazz tradition, does a reflection on this and kind of takes this to quote Buzz Lightyear from the cartoon character, to infinity and beyond. Um, this he takes snippets of this and does rhythmic figures that are just incredibly difficult. But again, he's trying to create the idea of what did it mean to be some of the first observers of the Pentecost experience, but also through a gospel and jazz influenced chords and harmony and rhythmic features. So it's a gospel. If there's a way to take Thomas Tallis and the amazing gospel tradition of America and put it in a bag and shake it up, that's what this piece is.
It sounds like a great show-stopping way to end the
Yeah.
concert. Well, this is going to be happening, this Don't Miss concert, only two performances, October 4th at Redemptorist. What time is that? I didn't have the time written down.
Yeah, Redemptorist is October 4th at 7:30 p.m.
And then October 5th at Visitation at what time?
and that's at 3 p.m.
3 p.m. Both of those are such beautiful churches. They're going to be the perfect atmosphere for this gorgeous music. And if you'd like to get tickets, and I encourage you to get them soon, go to spirechamberensemble.org. It's going to be great. You can just tell through the enthusiasm of Ben Spalding how great it's going to be with that Speminalium, a
Yep.
work you rarely hear, and all this other fantastic Renaissance music paired with contemporary works. It's going to be a very memorable concert. And Ben, we thank you very much for presenting this and all the other great music Spire does for Kansas City throughout the years. We really appreciate the work you do.
Thank you, Patrick. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and thanks for everything you do to help and enliven our arts in our great city. I call this Kansas City is the city of fountains, but it is also the city of choral music, and we're very proud of that.
We are very proud of it. Thank you, Ben, for being a part of that.
Thank you.
Well, you've been listening to the KC Arts Beat Report, so please, if you know somebody who likes choral music, share this video with them. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our Substack, follow us on Facebook, and until next time,